One. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Discussions in Education. Finally, two kind of quick in a row. Today with me, sorry, this is Tony Alberts. I haven't done my own introduction. Anyway, today with me is again my history department head over at Davis, Yolanda Lemus.
Hello.
And yeah, we're just kind of talking about random stuff today, but I think the thing that I was bringing up the other day was Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trump.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is weird. Okay, so for those of you who are unaware in the education profession, it is highly viewed down upon, and actually you can get suspended and or fired for sharing your political views, religious views, especially if you share it in a way that is construed as like trying to push those views on your students.
Yes.
And Donald Trump, much like most people have said about like the presidential campaigning in general, has thrown a wrench there, but he's also thrown a wrench into teaching history, especially if you're talking about elections, because well, he's a liar. So he lies about a lot of stuff, and he constantly backtalks over stuff, and people are like, oh, that's just your political opinion. But no, there's 100% documented points, videos, where you can see him saying two exactly opposite things within 60 days of each other.
Yes.
And so I was curious, because you've been teaching for a while, have you ever had a campaign like this where you had to deal with it?
See, this is what I miss about teaching 8th grade in government. I really do, because it was my major in college, was looking at U.S. history, particularly looking at government and more at our policies, our foreign policies, mostly with Latin America. But that has changed. Our focus now, of course, is now looking. It has. We're looking more towards the Middle East because we kind of need them. They have a thing called oil. So this campaign though is really it's like living in a reality show. I mean, we're all invited to be a part of this reality show, whether we liked it or not. And so this one is very different. I mean, I thought the whole, Al Gore and George Baby Bush and the whole Florida, the count, I thought that was something, because that was a big deal.
Oh yeah, it was huge. Yeah.
Looking at the voting and was there a fairness? Why did Gore concede so soon? Again, it's like, you're running for the office of presidency. I would have expected you to fight a little bit harder. Yeah. And he just didn't. So maybe it was a good thing we didn't get him. But anyway, but this one, wow, it is literally like a circus. Yeah. In fact, there's a show on Showtime right now called The Circus, and it's following both of these candidates because it's so just out there.
That's true. I guess I shouldn't just limit this to Trump because I mean, there's a lot of things as far as the Clinton campaign is, and I get a lot of my Facebook friends are Clinton supporters, but there's a lot of things that they're just like, well, you can't look at that, you're overlooking it for everyone else, and blah blah blah. And I was like, no, I didn't actually overlook it for everyone else. I thought they should have been prosecuted before as well. The difference is that the secretaries of state like Colin Powell and others, they never ran for president. Did he? No, that was
Colin.
Earlier.
Yeah, no. I think that was earlier. I think he was running under the vice president ticket. I don't think he was running as president. I can't remember either. Sorry.
But yeah, no. I mean, so it's this weird campaign where I very strongly try not to show bias, but when we were for my 8th grade and my 7th grade, we decided to do a unit since we have the split this year, 7th and 8th. We decided to do a unit on like rhetoric and sources and just kind of focus on those before we get into the history part. So we did campaigns, but we're going to the websites and we're reading what Trump says. And it's so opposite and counterintuitive of science or decent moral considerations of like human beings. that's couched in friendly terms that it's really hard. Like,
I'm really surprised he hasn't dropped the F-bomb more times. I mean, seriously, I'm just true. Like, a lot of his comments are just like, wait, what? I mean, again, for me, of course, what perked up my ears was the opening when he just announced his candidacy, and he just lays right into Mexico, and I thought, oh, this is not going to be good.
Yeah.
And then what he said, it was just like, wow, okay, you just lost the Hispanic vote. Maybe not for the Cubans, but for all the others, like I know the Dominicans, the Puerto Ricans, definitely the Mexicans.
Yeah.
Guatemalans. Guatemalans. I mean, the ones from El Salvador. Yeah. Oh, you just lost that vote right there.
Except for who's that local guy in San Jose, the Bay Area, who is the Latinos for Trump or Hispanics for Trump?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure who that person is. I'm like, it doesn't surprise me.
That was my favorite day, was when he was like, if Trump doesn't become president, there'll be taco trucks on every corner, and then literally, I think the Facebook posts and Reddit, just everything blew up, and it was like, look at another taco truck on this corner, and I was like, this is great. But so how have you been talking about it with your students?
Well, I get little blurbs here and there.
I know you don't have like the big class discussions, but
yeah. Well, we're just not ready for that just yet.
Yeah.
We're doing baby steps right now, because right now I'm going to try to open up that can of words and looking at the Goths.
Okay.
And what's going on with them and the Romans.
But that's a good comparison, yeah.
It is a good comparison. That's why I'm just kind of leading up to it with what's going on with those two groups and how you can see both sides of the story. Because right now, what the kids have known about the Romans is, gosh, these Romans were just terrible, awful people. Like, oh my gosh. But again, I really trying to say to them, look at the politicians and the government itself, not the whole society, because there is clearly a difference. Mm-hmm. So let's just try to keep that in perspective. But, they're 11 and 12, so, some baby steps. But, no, Trump... So far, we've kind of danced around it. I get the feeling, though, that most of my students are very anti-Trump. And, of course, that's coming from their parents. But it's surprisingly, because it's not coming from what I would expect my Latino students to be saying this.
Yeah.
It's really coming from my, I guess I can say it, white, and from my Asian students that it's coming from. That they're so anti-Trump. And I was like, oh. And that kind of threw me back.
Well, I will say, if you do start a conversation, I think that's when your Latino and Hispanic students will step into it more, because definitely in my class, It's all sides. And I'm really trying to push them to be clear, because like I said, the big push now is proof and evidence. So they'll say something like, like the thing we're considering in 7th grade right now is how does the environment affect our society, and the struggle for resources affect us. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at what each candidate says about the environment and resources. And I posed the question, I was like, okay, do the candidates view the environment as just a resource, or is it like a broader, we're part of the environment, we need to take care of it, and it has resources that we need, but we need to take care of it in general.
Because long after we're gone and dead, there's going to be a new group of people, and that's that's why we're looking at this. It's not just about us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and the thing is, obviously, they're like, oh, Trump just views it as a resource. He's just in it for the money, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, but like, what does he specifically say? And so, I mean, they've been taking that time, but then they go through it, and his website is phrased so for every other candidate, when you go to their website, it says, we are going to do these things, blah, 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 blah. We're going to change this law, so it says this. But when they're talking about changing a law, they're like, we want this to be the new policy. But for his website, what he does, and I just noticed this when they were going to it, he lists the policies that currently exist, and all he says is, we want to change them. But he doesn't say what he wants to change them to. So,
no.
There was one about coal mining permits. That made sense. He's like, okay, I just want to start giving coal mining permits again. But the other one was government control of water systems, where he wants to change the fact that government can come in and tell an individual how to deal with water that's on their land. And he wants to change it, but he didn't say if like, okay, am I going to give all that water completely to private owners?
Yeah.
Does that mean if I own water along the Sacramento River, that chunk is now mine? Like,
yeah. He's never clear, because in fact, the fact that you just brought that up, I was looking at something earlier today, and I still saved it, so yay. He said something about, cutting the Department of Education and Common Core.
Oh yeah.
That whole thing. And so they were just asking him, and I believe this is from, I forget what site this is, but it says, what department would you cut? So right away he answered. He says, well, we're going to be cutting tremendous amounts of money. So one of the first places I would cut is, of course, the Department of Education. And I'm reading it going, okay, so what's your rationale behind it? And from what I could gather, he basically said, well, because Common Core is bad. It's like, wow, you sound like that character from South Park. Guns are bad, Mr. Mackey, it's just bad kids, but why is it bad? You're not explaining yourself. Anything. And so that's the maddening part. It's like, ooh, just say it, man. Just say it, because we know you're going to flip-flop later anyway. So just come out and just say it, because whatever comes out of your mouth, we know you're going to change it in 30 seconds or 30 days.
Well, I mean, and that's like I said, I mean, it's been so difficult as a teacher not to input, personal, verbiage into addressing Trump, because it's one of those situations of, kids will say like, oh, like Trump wants to do this, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. The point where he says that, okay, well, we're just going to tell our military to, go in, and we're just going to kill terrorist families. We're just going to, let's get rid of them. Like, let's teach terrorists that lesson. It's like, you're literally telling our military to go in and shoot women and children or drop a bomb on them. I was like, I guarantee you, maybe some people in our military would, but a vast majority would be like, you're fucking crazy. And so kids will bring that to me, and I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. Yeah. Like, there is going to be a point where people, if he got into the office, people would be unable to comply with his orders based on international law.
They're going to question it. They're going to say, we follow procedure. This is not part of our protocol. Something that's already been for years, if not generations, put into place. And it's like, you're not just going to come along and just break down the whole thing and just do it your way, guy. I mean, it's not going to happen. Now, I believe, though, that Trump knows this.
Yeah.
He knows this, but he's not going to sound rational for whatever reason that's driving him.
I've heard a lot of people point out, like, the question, like, reasonable people point out, like, is he actually trying to win or not? Yeah. Like, it was that question a lot of people have brought it up. It's like, every time something comes out about Hillary, within a week, he does something worse.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was one of those things like, okay, like, oh, like, hey, here's the results of the hearing committee. And yes, Republican spouting what people say, like, Republican lies, but, obviously a very negative impact on the public image for Clinton. And then, a week or two later, it's like, okay, well, Trump comes out with, oh God, what did he come out over the summer? I don't know. He comes out with so much stuff. And each one is worse. It's like, okay, I'm going to go to Mexico. Okay, now I'm going to tell them to their face, you're paying for this wall, and this is what's happening. And I'm going to come back and say,
which Mexico. He didn't, by the way. On his recent trip, he didn't. He met with the president.
Yeah.
And the president was kind of waiting for it, and it just never happened. It's like, we'll see.
But then he came back and was like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what's happening. This is what I told them. And you're like, you didn't, though. Like,
but you didn't, no.
There's transcripts.
There's a thing called video. Yes, and transcripts. But I like the fact, though, that I know the Washington Post has been really keeping up with, actually both sides, not just Trump only, but with Hillary, too. And they do a great thing where they write the article, and I forget the journalist's name, but they write the article, and then they add a video to it, where they will then show when these candidates make statements, how it's not true.
Yeah.
And they go back to those transcripts and show, like, this is when they actually, what is true. Or no, that never happened. Like, one of the things I think, like, Trump came out and said something was like, how ISIS is taking over all the oil fields.
Oh, yeah.
That they're all in control, and we can't allow that to happen. And, well, dude, that's not true. If anything, ISIS, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, ISIS has been bombing the hell out of the oil fields because they see that as, well, we're gonna cut off your money source. Because how do you hurt rich people? By making them poor people.
Exactly.
So that's what you go after. And again, Trump, that's kind of like you. You're seen as this rich person. So, how do we get to you by making you poor? Okay, so we sue you. Trump University. So many things. His bankruptcies. I mean, his Trump. The
casino. Girls that did the Star Spangled Banner dance for him that are suing him because he didn't pay them. It's like one of those things where you're like, oh. At
least the people who started his campaign, all the people he paid to be there at his Trump Towers, at least they got paid cash and a lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, so they're not suing him. That's a positive. There's a positive there.
No, I mean, it's so weird. And it brings me back to arguments that I had with my friends like 4 or 5 months ago when Sanders was in the race.
Oh yeah, Bernie.
And so many people are like, well, it's not the time for him. I'm like,
well,
when
you
are the one who's deciding it's not the time. Like, how can you stand? Like, when I hear people complain about this race now, there is definitely a part of me that laughs at them because I'm like, you had an option to generally change the dynamics. Like what we just heard that Stein and Johnson don't have the 15% supposedly to get into the presidential debate. So not at least the first one. So obviously if they can get to one of the later ones.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that if Bernie Sanders was running, I feel like he would make a push for them to run. Because very realistically, I feel like a lot of Trump supporters, if they heard what Gary Johnson had to say, they would back him.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, not the vitriolic ones, but the ones who are just like, I can't vote for Hillary because I do not like her policies, etc., like her history, whatever reason, whether a truthful reason or just a messed up Republican reason.
Or you could say it because she's a girl.
Yeah, exactly, because she's a woman. Whatever reason it might be, like. I feel like Sanders would be inviting Stein and Johnson into the debate, even if he was in it, because the more opinions out there, the smarter the...
Or wouldn't it even be even more of a gesture for, let's just say, if Hillary simply said, look, here are 2 other candidates. Just regardless of the 15%, let them debate with us.
Yeah.
Bring them on.
Bring them in.
I think
then we can have a real discussion.
Exactly, because if I were Hillary, honestly, I'm like, really? I got to sit up here with this guy? No, let's bring in the 2 others, people. Come on, let's bring them in because
I would make a crazy
I would really love to see then the 3 of them.
Oh yeah.
Really just shut Trump down.
Yeah, and they all have attitudes in which they would do that.
Yes,
like, I don't feel like
they all bring something to the table. They all do.
Yeah. So I don't know. And like I said, so it's all this complicated stuff, but there is a part of me that's freaked out. Like, I don't... So, I mean, I feel like if Hillary gets in the office, we're going to see an enormous rise of charter schools.
I feel the same way, too.
I mean, she has, in her past, definitely backed them. That's her preference. She's friends with a lot of charter school people, and I feel like public education will take that hit, will become the education site for the kids who the charter schools don't want, and then we'll have the funds to match that. And then I feel if Trump wins, like, all of education is going to get cut. You're going to see the rise of private schools.
Oh yeah,
and I'm sure they're going to push for what they were trying for. What was that? 6 years ago with the was it 6? I can't remember. It was 6 to 10 years ago when they're making the big push for every student just gets a voucher. And that voucher is worth money, and they can go to any school they want. And that's
yeah, I want to say it's closer to.
Was that 10 years ago?
10 because it was picking up steam before Obama came into office.
Oh, that's true.
So I would say 10. I think you were correct. Yeah, 10.
Oh yeah,
10.
It was under Bush.
It was under Bush. He was pushing it, and then Obama seemed to be carrying the torch. And so again, I voted for Obama, but he didn't always make me happy. But again, that's what's going to happen with presidents. I mean, you're not always going to agree with them. They're not always going to make you happy. Yeah, so, I mean, I have a real issue with Hillary myself.
Yeah.
Now, will I end up probably just voting for her? Probably.
Okay.
And South Park just recently did a great episode. You know, do we vote for the douchebag or do we vote for the shit sandwich? You know, those are our two choices.
Yeah.
You know, douche or shit. So they kind of grasp that feeling that I have, and I think a lot of us have.
This is the first time I've heard from like non-super political people, because like you and I will have talks like this, and like a couple other people, you know, definitely talks like this. But this is the first time where I've talked with just like people who are like, I really want a reset button. I want to vote a no confidence that we can put on there and just say like, no, neither choice. Let's start over. You two are not allowed to run. Get out of here. Mm-hmm. We're going to get 2 more choices. Adriana in the office was like, well, you know, technically if a previous president is assassinated, 2 years, and then if they get elected, they can serve 2 terms. They can have a max of 10 years. Maybe with Obama, we just do 2 more years because we're okay with that. And I was like, Adriana, I like what you're thinking.
Who's getting shot?
No one's getting shot.
Who's getting shot?
But no. But I mean, her point was like, listen, like presidents can serve a maximum of 10 years. Let's just make him serve the other 2, and then let's force, you know, Clinton and Trump out, and then get a whole new race going.
Well, there is a thing called the Constitution,
I know.
And you could add a thing called an amendment to it. So you know the whole idea of the reset. Yeah, for right now, yes, it is a little bit too late, but it's not a far-fetched idea. I mean, it can happen. This is why the flexibility
was built in.
The beauty of having it built into the Constitution. You know. Those forefathers, again, I don't always agree with them. You know, I kind of question some of their lifestyle choices. But, you know, when it came to that document... You don't like having sex with enslaved women?
Come on now.
Well, there were some other things going.
Yeah,
like exactly what some of them were producing on those lands. But anyway.
Exactly.
But, yeah, I look at that and I go, well, that's kind of like... They at least saw that, and they did look at it and say there is a clear separation of what I personally want, or when it comes to religion, keeping those 2 things separate.
Yeah.
And for the last, I'm going to say, really, the last
60 years, right?
I was going to say 30 for me.
Okay.
You know, since I became aware. I'm 43 now, so I'll say about 30 years. From what I've seen is like religion has really shaped our recent presidents and policies and how people vote, and it's like, but you know, that stuff's got to be separate. I mean, where did they lose sight of that, or they never
lost sight
did?
Of it with McCarthyism during the Red Scare, when they started adding like God to the pledge, because they were atheist communists, and they added God to the pledge. So now we say, you know, under God, indivisible. And it's like, no, that doesn't need to be there.
That was added in. You're right. I forgot about that.
And that was a big push, right?
Yeah.
And then especially, I think, when Kennedy got elected as a Catholic, I think a lot of the Christians in the country were like, well, okay, we're
he's
going to
answer to the Pope.
But yeah, exactly.
Like,
he's going to listen to everything the Pope says. You're like, you're an idiot. Like, that's not going to happen. But
yeah, and for me, when Baby Bush, he would always bring it up when he spoke, and that scared me all the time. Well, you know, I was praying, and you know, in my prayers I heard from God. I'm like, oh no, you said that out loud.
Please don't hear from God.
Oh my God, you said that out loud. That's kitchen talk. You say that in the privacy of your own home. I'm sure his cabinet members and advisors are going, oh, let's pull him off the podium.
I mean,
pull the mic.
From what I hear, like, especially in the military branches, I mean, there were all those reports about how, like, the religion, like, especially extreme religious right has, like, seeped into a lot of parts of the military where, like, people are just like, I don't really believe, and I don't want to say that out loud, or I'm going to get hounded on this base and constantly harassed about it, even by by supervisors and or by, commanding officers. And it's like, okay, like, that's crazy. Like, we do have, I mean, the funny thing is, as much as we talk about, like, these fundamentalist armies and terrorists that we're fighting, it's like, we have pretty close to a fundamentalist army.
We do, yeah. And I think we have for a very long time. I just think like they were closeted for a long time, and now they're just like, again, thank you, Tea Party. They're just more open about it now.
Yeah.
They just feel
and I'm
like,
happy about in a way. I'm happy about it because I'm learning more about, and I feel like a lot of people who previously were like, America's fine the way it is, are starting to say like, where the fuck are all these crazy people coming from? And you're like, they've always been here.
Yeah.
Just because they only dealt with minorities before and we didn't have the internet to share that shit.
Yeah.
But it's here now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even talking about the cop stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, it's crazy with the kids because I try to tell them, like, listen, I was like, on the one hand, as a teacher, I need to teach them. You need to respect, authority. You need to understand, like, police officers here to keep you safe, blah, blah, blah. I could keep that fiction up for a while. But now, when kids can go on and find an example every other day of a situation in which, okay, hey, like, oh, my tire's flat. Oh, look I get shot after having my hands up after being stopped by the cops on the side of the road. So they killed his dad. I'm a 13-year-old kid who's 4'11", and I'm running away, and, I've got a BB gun in my belt, whatever, but I'm running away from the cops because I think they're going to shoot me. Or the kid who, you saw that story about the kid, was it in D.C. or Carolina? I can't remember where it was, somewhere on the East Coast. Dropped his ball in the street, ran out to go get it, didn't look both ways. The cops started yelling at him and started chasing him with guns. He thought they were coming to shoot him because he had jaywalked.
Oh,
and they thought he was, I think the kid was like 10 or 11, 12, something like that. They thought he was a 17-year-old robbery suspect. So, they're guns drawn, running at this kid, and the neighbors are screaming like, he's a kid, he's a kid, he's a kid, don't shoot him. I was like, what the like, how am I supposed to then go to these kids and say, like, you're safe?
Yeah, I know.
You're safe.
Trust the adults. Trust the person in uniform.
We now have two pretty clear examples. And people are like, well, there's hundreds of thousands of interactions a day, and these, this is what happens. And of course they're going to be messed up. It's like, yeah, there are, except for how come all these videos are of people of color?
Yeah.
There are a vast majority of interactions with white people. Like, there are more white people. Then how come all of these ones that are getting shot or killed are of people of color doing nothing wrong?
Yeah.
But I can see, like...
Well, like the man who was the caretaker for the mentally challenged adult. He literally had his hands and screaming out, I am, like, his caretaker.
Yeah.
I am unarmed. I am just trying to make sure that he doesn't get hurt. And all the while, he still got shot.
Oh, yeah. No,
he still got shot.
And it happens to poor white people all the time. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
Native Americans, I think
don't even get me started on that one.
One of the numbers, Native Americans are number one in, like, percentage of individuals who die by police, and then it's blacks. I think it's Mexicans after
and they're getting it from all sides. They're getting it from the feds. They're getting it from the local police. They're getting it from within their own community.
They're getting it from guys with dogs and pipelines, motherfuckers.
Yeah. You don't see a Native American family at a Denny's. You don't.
Nope.
You don't see. It's like, where are they? Do they even exist still? I remember I had a kid that asked me that, like, are there still Native Americans? Like, are they still around? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. They're trying to do amazing things.
Go to the Central Valley. We got quite a few around here, too, locally.
We do.
But, they just kind of like, oh, we do. We do?
They're still alive? What?
Yeah, I know. They don't live all on reservations. Like, they don't all own casinos.
And that's part of why I don't like the way we teach history. Oh. Because... especially I feel like young kids, especially these days with their internet access, we need to start with modern history, and like I know up to third grade they do all the local stuff.
Yeah, they do.
Like, because I know they do like grocery markets and emergency services as far as like history comes, and like California
Your
stuff.
Community, California, yeah.
But for some reason then we jump in 6th grade, in 5th grade and 4th grade to California history, and then 6th, 7th, world history, 8th grade, U.S. history. But that's when the kids are processing. They don't understand what's happening in the world around them. And so they get to the history, and, we're sharing this as if, Native Americans are all gone. Oh, yeah, well, it was the Spanish who mostly did it. And then, of course, when the Americans came through, we definitely killed a lot of Native Americans. Oh, so they're all dead. No, there's actually a hell of a lot of Native Americans still around. They're also known as First Nations people, the indigenous nations.
Or just simply as American Indians.
Exactly.
They're known as that too,
all those things, they're still around. You can call them by their specific tribal names are 100%, the Lakota or the Sioux or...
Around here, the Ohlone.
Yeah, the Ohlone. Mm-hmm. You can go by all these, but the kids don't understand it. Yeah. And that's why I think this year when I was doing world history, I was like, okay, I really want to start with the campaign because that's something I can tie into, and then we can look at, okay, let's go in the past. Mm-hmm. Let's look at the Romans and the, Aztecs dealt with resources in the environment. Mm-hmm. You have two different approaches. The Aztecs built on and incorporated the environment into their plans. The Romans paved over that shit, built over it.
Built over it.
Like, who are we more like, kids? Definitely the Romans. But, no, I mean...
That's always the trick, trying to tie it into today. So, that's what I've been dealing with, especially, that's why I love the Goths and the Romans. So, trying to pull that, how do we see the Goths today? Who are the Goths? So, that's why I'm trying to tie it in with immigrants and migrants, that clearly the Goths fall into that category.
Yep.
And the Romans
became second-class citizens and slaves. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well...
And where does this fervor of the anti-immigrant come into play? So that's why right now I'm trying to really show both sides for the Romans and the Goths. And so I can see some of the little brains ticking, the kids are starting to go, oh, I get it. And the others that are still like, wait, what? What's going on? What? Squirrel? What? But again... At least they have the opportunity to have the conversation, to ask the questions. So that's always a good thing. Now, does it take up more time? Of course it does. But you know what? I'm willing to do that in order for them to get it, to make those connections.
Well, that's the biggest part, which is that, I've told you before, I still stand by it. My dream is to cut the standards in half because I feel that while we can say, I feel like what it seems like is history is going in the right direction as far as the new standards with kind of focusing more thematic and the big questions. And it's here are the things you can talk about to explain this, and you should explain all these things. I feel like that's how world history should definitely be approached, of here is the main question, and here are some suggested civilizations to address that one. So you can talk about them, or you can compare to, do what you want, however you like it. But I think definitely that CST, the star testing.
Yeah, CST.
Yeah. The CSTs, where it was just you just needed all the information. Mm-hmm. Just too damn much.
Oh yeah, that was overload. That was kill. And then on top of that, they didn't even break it up. It was all the way back to 6. So we're going to test you in 8th, what hopefully you've retained in 3 years.
Yeah. And I tell the kids, I was like...
What?
It's all right, kids, in 6th grade, you should have learned 120,000 years of history. Mm-hmm. Now you have to learn 10 to 15,000 years of history. Well, I don't know, 10,000? What did we see? No, 3,000. 3,000 years of history. And Romans. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A little less. Maybe about 2,000 years of history. And then you get to 8th grade, and it's like, okay, well... We're going to learn about 100 years of history, really. Maybe 120.
Yeah.
But this shit is messed up, kids, so have fun with it. I don't know. Our standards are so screwy sometimes. And then on top of everything else, because, we're not... Our classes are our social studies. Yeah. And it becomes a question of, where are we going to get the most bang for our buck? How can I tie it into the kids so that they'll learn more of it and about their own social structures?
That's always the trick.
It is.
That's always the trick. It's hard. It is definitely not easy.
What's your favorite civilization to teach them about?
Oh, it changes every year. But for probably in the very beginning, I love doing the comparison of the medieval knight of Europe and the Japanese samurai.
Nice.
Those were my faves. And then as I got to know more about West African kingdoms and civilizations, Mansa Musa became my guy. Like, I love to get to Mansa Musa. I was like, I couldn't wait to tell these kids about the salt and gold trade and how, the story of where the Lion King comes from. I tied that in because they all seen the movie or the play or both. So that was always fun.
Start talking about the African storytellers.
Yeah. And then, of course, looking at the Americas, definitely. Again, because I'm partial, I always refer to the Aztecs as their true name, the Mexica. And the kids look at me like, what? Who the Mexica? AKA the Aztecs. But that's not really their real name. That's when the Spaniards came along. But anyway, I'll tell you that story later. That was always a fun one. But then I really started to enjoy teaching medieval Europe. Really looking at the rise of the towns, townships. And then looking at, because that tied in with the wars and plague and all that, and of course I love zombies. So that would tie in very beautifully into that. But right now, since I'm shifting gears so much those last 2 years, I'm just kind of going with the flow and trying to pull from each one all their best parts and seeing, okay, where does it fit? Like right now we're looking at migrations and immigration. So right now, honestly, I'm stuck with the Romans. Yeah. But I'm pulling in all the other groups that were impacted, but also they influenced the Romans too, because I am looking at the end of the Roman period. So I come in right at the height and when it collapses. So it's been nice this year to actually bring in talking about the Celts and when they were in Gaul, talking about the Swabians as they were in northern Poland today, northern Germany, and now talking about the Goths who were coming more from Poland and that Eastern European side and coming in, and I'm hoping to get to the Vandals, but I don't know. I might have to skip them and then I'll just go right into the Vikings. So we'll see. Because I already got an idea for the Vikings. I'm like, all right, these kids are going to be Vikings. They're going to have to do a resume for me. They're going to have to sell it to me as though why they should be on this next boat to be on this next raid. I got this idea.
Nice.
I got this idea.
Like that.
Yeah, but again, I'm jumping ahead because it's like, oh shoot, but I still got to get out of Rome and the whole immigration and tie it into today.
Yeah.
So.
Well, see, and that's why. Yeah, that's why I was like, okay, I thought up my thematic questions. And I'm running them the way that I want to run them. But this first unit, since I'm working with Flandes, it's going a lot longer than we originally planned. Originally, we're like, oh, it's going to be 3 weeks. Now we're like 6, 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, oh, shit. So I'm not really starting world history until the second term, which, whatever. It's not tested, and I can kind of fool around with it. Yeah. But that's why I was like, okay, what I really wanted this year is kids to consider, if they got any history, I'm sure they focus on just like one civilization at a time. And this year, kind of like what you're doing with the Goths and the Romans, I wanted them to consider like the two different ones. So that's why I wanted to talk about, okay, like here's the Romans and this is how they handled resources. And what did that lead to? Well, that led to other tribes in the area struggling for resources and coming at them for those resources. And like similarly, like you had the Aztecs with their resources, and they definitely raided other tribes for the resource of bodies or whatever they needed for, like, just standard resources too, food, supplies, what everybody wants. And then comparing them, like, okay, so then what happened to both these civilizations? How did they end up where they're at? It's like, okay, well, what happened is that when you're always struggling for resources, and that's what you do, when someone comes in who's stronger and wants resources, they're going to take them from you.
From all of you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happens with the Romans, because they're too stretched out. Even though they were the world power, like, you stretch out too far, your resources start getting taken. Like, that's what happens.
Yeah. It was kind of great because the video clip I was showing today, the kids noticed on the map, they said, wait, hold on, why is Rome in 2 different colors? And I said, oh, sorry, that's a great question. Yeah. Rome actually got so big that it had to split itself in half. So you had the western side of Roman civilization, the Roman Empire, and then you had the eastern side. So one was still considered very Roman, but the other was considered more Byzantine. And I haven't talked about the Byzantine, which is the eastern side. Yeah. And so the kids are like, oh. So does that mean they had 2 capitals? I said, another great question. Actually, they did. Yeah. And so I talked a little bit about that. But again, I see that and I'm going, oh, They are listening. Oh my God, some of them are catching on, or not just mindlessly watching the video, which is what I'm also really trying to do. Is like, I know some of you got shown a video clip and then it was like, okay kids, what'd you think? Yeah. Wasn't that great? Yay. Okay, moving on. Or I'm going to read you a story from a book, ask a couple of questions. Yay. Okay, we're moving on. And again, I'm not dogging out the elementary school teachers, because I know they got like 50 billion things they're teaching all at once. They got every
other requirement, and they all have to do with math or English.
Exactly. So. They don't get the luxury of just, I just would love to stay on one and just see it through for maybe 6 weeks and then work on something else. And they can't do that. They got to juggle it every day.
Well, it's not like that, but like as much as the fact is that they're going to start needing the 6th grade history and the 6th grade science.
Yeah.
Because
it's 5th grade. It's got to start really by 5th grade.
Well, yeah. So 5th grade they need to get the skills, but then the content, especially since it's 6 through 8.
Yeah.
It's getting to a point where they're not being able to address it because of the way their classrooms are set up.
Yeah. And
because they're not getting the training on how to address it.
And I'm hoping we're going to move in that direction, because again, you and I both got to go see the Bulldog Tech, and so how they basically have turned their curriculum into basically what I would call the Maker's Fair.
Yeah.
So you have the best of both. You give them the skills, you give them the content, you give them all that, and then you give them that chance to really build the project.
Yeah.
And you guys did that last year with the Mars colony.
Yeah.
In 8th grade. But again, to see that just be an ongoing thing. But again, it has to start back in elementary.
It does.
Because by the time they get to us, like, these kids already know how to log in, do this, do that. Can we do it this way? Can we do it that way? They're already on that ball. And I'm like, perfect, great.
No,
yes.
That's a huge thing.
Yes, you can. Yes, do it that way. Can we borrow the video and do that? Yes, you can absolutely do that. When I give a presentation, do I have to stand in front of the class? No. How do you want to do it? Well, if I could have someone videotape it, yes, you can totally do that. So that's great, because they're getting that in the elementary.
Yeah.
And they're bringing up here.
They're getting a lot of skills, which is what I'm definitely far more concerned about. I will 100% agree that usually this is the first year in all my years of teaching where instead of having to spend 3 weeks on introducing all the tech and getting them logged in, it was about a week and a half. And that was
Me
great.
too. I know. That I can honestly say the same thing. Yes, I saw it too.
It was perfect. And what I'd really like to see is us coordinate with the elementary so that we can start doing skills. So if we, if we K-8 decided like, okay, you know what, we really like Cornell style or, T-style notes, the T-chart notes where it's like, okay, this side is the notes, this side is your opinion or thoughts or questions or you have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then every once in a while we summarize like what we're taking. Like even a basic skill like that, if it were consistent across multiple grades.
Well, I think some teachers are doing that, because I had kids who were doing note taking, and so I had them just basically start on paper because I want to see their writing.
Yeah.
And some kids did say, "Is it all right as I'm watching the video and taking my own notes that I just open up the Google Doc and just take my notes that way?"
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Totally do it that way.
Yeah.
Just always remember to save it. And that's the thing. So I'm seeing that.
No,
and
that's
I'm
good.
just like, perfect. Yes, you can absolutely do that. Of course you can.
No, I don't know. I'm worried about, like, obviously I'm worried about all sorts of stuff, and I'm always trying to think of like, okay, what's the next step? How can we get ahead of it? And for me, I really think we need to start talking about those history standards now, because just seeing what's happening with the science rollout.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're starting science pilot testing this year, supposedly.
I know.
I was like, okay, but none of our kids are converted over. They're just starting the second year of rollout.
Yeah.
They kind of did it last year.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I don't want to end up like that for history. Like, I don't.
I don't either.
But I'm not sure if we'd have the same problem. Just because, they're not going to spread the content. I think they're just shifting the same grade level content into more thematic questions.
Yeah.
But then it is a question of like, okay, how can we set this up so it's more standardized? I mean, the thing really will still be what's happening in 5th and 6th grade, like you said. But us working more with the 6th grade and 5th grade teachers to help them incorporated into ELA so that they can cut down that aspect. I mean, it's not like there's not a ton of great history fiction novels if they wanted to.
Not yet. I'm hoping there's more can come out, but
there's the Shadow Spinner for the Middle East, and I mean there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
Crispin, right?
Yeah, that's that one. And Crispin Atticus?
Was it Crispin Atticus? I can't remember which one. Yeah, it's one of those.
I'm not sure. Or maybe I'm thinking of a historical figure.
Roman. Yeah. Oh no, that was the Templars.
Okay, yeah.
I can't remember now.
But that takes time because we have to go out and look for that and read it ourselves and say, okay, can I bring this into the room? And then I got to get 40 copies. Yeah. And can I get this online? Can I get it on audio?
It would be nice if we could partner with the elementary school teachers and help come up with it so that they don't feel that pressure. But
yeah. Wouldn't it be great if when we have our AB day in January, our tech time, that would be the moment when we are all together?
Yeah.
Because that's really the only time where you see elementary and intermediate all together. That would be the moment there.
I mean, one of the things, maybe then I do this on a roundabout way. Maybe what we do is we say how to incorporate Google Classroom and rolling out the new history standards just to get more teachers interested in coming through, and we could probably pull all the history teachers in, and then we can talk about, okay, here are the standards. This is actually alive. We're not going to talk about Google Classroom at all.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about what's happening with these new standards. What are we interested in? But it is the question of whether they'll allow it. I think I can probably pressure Bruce into allowing that. Oh.
Sorry.
Well, at least that's a generic enough name where that's everywhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry about that. That's what happens when you do podcasts at school.
Yeah.
But, no, I don't know. I mean, how are you feeling this year in general? Just as far as the teaching profession goes, because I think last year we talked about it a little bit, and.
Actually,
are you feeling more positive?
I'm feeling positive.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that part, no, I'm feeling very positive. Again, I'm just kind of going with taking old stuff I've done before and just progressing with it, just making those changes that it's this is so much easier now. Or, okay, I could just do it this way.
Yeah.
And then just roll it out to kids. Because the kids are not going to know the difference.
No.
They have no clue.
Yeah.
I know, but they don't. And that's the beauty of it. But no, I'm fine. I got plenty of material. I mean, there's almost so much that I'm always editing myself.
Oh, I have to. Yeah.
I have to edit. Just right now, though, I'm feeling like we're at the end of our term. I'm in Rome.
Yeah.
And now I'm just okay. My focus, though, was looking at migrants, immigration, looking at push and pull factors, looking at how environments change, but also environments, how they're left. When people do leave, what happens? It's not like everyone left. Yeah. So what happens to that group that got left behind? Does time stand still? Do they get better? Do they get worse? I mean, we can look at Detroit. We can look at, exactly. Jesus. We can look at Detroit. We can look at what's going on here in California. What happened to Modesto, Stockton. Yeah. What was happening there?
Yeah.
And then where we see the increases, again, clearly here in the Bay Area, there's been a jump. But now, I think we're going to get a backlash because, again, a lot of people can't afford to live in the Bay Area, so they're leaving.
So many. We're losing so many people, and it's one of those things too where, we've talked about this. This is the thing that I was saying was kind of my issue with the union, which is that as teachers in this district, we're not doing much to draw kids in, and I don't mean that in you're not doing anything in your classroom, but what I mean in the sense of we're not really advertising. We're not competing.
The promoting ourselves and what we're doing.
The district's not promoting
successfully.
us.
Yeah.
They'll post every once in a while, but it's not the targeted campaign that charters and that private schools are doing, where they're sending the pamphlets, they're publishing online, they've got all the commercials. It it's that district sandbag of like, oh, the kids have to end up here anyway. And it's like, no, we just ended up 200 kids short on our enrollment, which is a lot, is a lot for a district to lose. That's a lot of ADA money. Is it ADA?
ADA, no.
What is it? I can't remember the code for it. Yeah. But it is a lot of funding that provides, money for after-school program, all this stuff that we could plan to do for the kids, but we're not selling it. And I think...
And in a small way, too, our district actually works against us. I mean, we lose 60 kids for probably the last 4 years to Christopher because of their extension of 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah. Which is largely unnecessary because we have such a low... I mean, if we're losing enrollment all around, it's like, why make more schools? You know what I mean? Wouldn't it make more sense? Like, okay, let's take the ones we have, let's streamline them, let's make them more efficient.
I've always said, too, like, the rumor right now is, let's just say an elementary school nearby, one of our feeder schools, may be shutting down. Yeah. That's kind of the rumor right now, but I don't really think it's a rumor. I think Davis is going to be, and I've always said this, we need to really be a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade middle school.
We
do. And that's probably the way we're going to go.
I think all the middle schools in this district need to be 6, 7, 8 because of the way the standards are going. And then at least we can start building kids sooner. But like I said, it's one of those things, too, where it's like if you make Davis a 6, 7, 8, you're going to get even more parents frantic because we're not, again, selling what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's because I'm in that admin program, and that was a thing that Kim and I were talking about, and we were saying that it would be a good area for me to focus on because what I wanted to do was, you had mentioned it last year, that like there's community out there that want to be a part of the school and they just don't know how to connect. And so that's one of the things I'm going to be writing up as my proposal is actually creating like some sort of booster club or something where parents know exactly where to go to talk and offer their services, and it can be parent-led in which they say, okay, we need volunteers for this, we need help with this, we need to get the word out about these issues or these events coming up, let's do that. So that parents, especially the ones who are in PTA in the elementary school, and if in the end they want to turn it into a PTA, that's on them, that's perfectly fine. But getting them together so that they know how to engage with middle school, because it is different.
Yeah,
it is. We don't need classroom volunteers every day, but when we do need volunteers, like it would actually be nice to have, I have to say it would be nice to have parents come to some of the rallies to see what happens during the rallies. Like, how do we raise school spirit? It would be nice to have it set up so that at the end of the year when if we do the 8th grade we're going to do the 8th grade end of year capstone, but like have parents come and help run that and help participate and help kids feed through. Yeah. Or if we decide to do like a smaller one with 7th grade, because we were talking about that too as an idea of like not the whole grade level, like every subject, but like history and English teaming up. And like, okay, kids, you're going to do a joint project for history and English, and you're going to present it at the end of the year. That's your capstone project. You're going to do one for math and science, and do that, and then we'll do another, like a smaller, maybe in-school presentation where kids can come around. But even parents helping out with that would be a huge thing. Yeah. But right now we're just losing, and then the teachers are demanding more, but we're losing. Yeah. So it's that question of like, and we're actually just demanding, I think, aren't we demanding back to what we were at prior to us losing a lot?
Yeah, actually we
are. So we're not even, So I'm not, sorry, I phrased that kind of wrong. We're not even saying, we're saying like, hey, remember where we were at 10 years ago? Yeah. Can we please go back to that right now while we have the funds? And
cost of living adjustment COLA. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cost of living adjustment to back to 10 years ago, because right now we're below where we were at 10 years ago.
And again, as we reminded the board 2 weeks ago, and there's another board meeting this week, the whole idea of, yes, please go, 7 o'clock. And they brought up the fact that, we did meet you halfway district by taking furlough days. Yeah. 19 of them. Yeah. And all we got back was 4. Yeah. 4 to 5 days. Yeah. We didn't even get the full 19 back. So that was a huge deal, because I was one of those people that I wasn't happy with just getting back the 4 to 5 days. I'm like, I was here during those times. I want my 19 back. Yeah. And I did feel a bit of bitterness because we had a lot of new teachers come in that year when furlough stopped. And then that's when our union agreed with the district on that compromise of, well, we're going to give you back these days.
Yeah.
So people who weren't even here, people who weren't here, got those days. So the way I saw it, I'm like, you got a bonus.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's how I saw it.
Yeah.
And I still do see it that way. You got a bonus. Okay. So, yeah, there's a little bit of bitterness there. But I just go, and now with the whole BS of, well, 2%, but one time, and only if this brand new parcel tax passes. And to me, I'm like, BS. Yeah. BS. No. 4.5.
Yeah. Well,
4.5 is not asking for much. 4.5.
Too is that, then this is, and like I said, I'm in this admin program, I'm going through it, and the very first thing she said.
Who's the professor? Sorry.
Damn it, I know.
Through San Jose State or through a different
no,
program?
she's through Santa Clara County.
Santa Clara County, that's right.
But she's what did she say? She's a reform superintendent.
I love that.
Yeah, but she's she's very analytical, and I really appreciate her class. Damn it, I can't remember her.
That's okay, sorry.
But no, I'll tell her in the next podcast. But no, she's really good. The first thing she said was when you're doing your budget, never ever tie.
The budgets, yes.
Yeah, never ever tie. Something that needs to be paid, like teacher salaries, to something that is fluctuating.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's a specific position that is okay, this is an oversight position while we have this funds. Okay, well then, that one's going to be tied to these funds, and once those funds are gone, goodbye. This is a temporary spot. Yeah. She's like, but you get to these districts and they're just tying random classroom teachers to this temporary money, and you're like, that's not only illegal, but it's also immoral. You can't do that. That's against the rules.
Yeah. Violation of ed code.
Right, and that's our district. They're like, 2%, it's even the ongoing, but based on the parcel tax. It's like, okay, so what happens if that parcel tax doesn't get renewed someday?
Yeah.
Are you then going to take away 2%? Because that will be another issue.
Yeah.
So,
10 years ago, this district was very pro, we're going to support teachers who want to go to admin, we're going to support it. And they did.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, many of us soon realize, but you want us to be the cookie cutter model. You don't want things to change. You want us to drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
No. And some of us, a few of us, some who are not here anymore, like Miss CM, she's no longer here anymore because the district blackballed her. They just said, well, you came through our program, you're going to be one of our shining stars because we need more Latinas, especially in those admin positions. And I'm sorry, I do hate to say it, we don't have many women of color in this district who are in those admin positions. We have Yolanda Ross. We have over at Baldwin. I see her face, and now I just forgot her name.
You're like me right
But
now.
she's over at Baldwin, and then that's. Yeah. Oh no, we have Shatal Patel. She's over at Glider.
Okay.
I believe.
Who's
Not Glider, or
she's
over at the district office level. Well, you just have Maria Wetzel.
Okay.
But she's from Spain. I don't count her. Sorry.
She's an actual Hispanic.
She's a literal Hispanic from the peninsula. But
an Iberian.
Sorry.
What is she doing here?
Yeah, exactly. We're not part of the same tribe. Sorry, Maria. We're not. But again, she does speak Spanish, and she also is fluent in American Sign Language because she has a daughter who is deaf.
Yeah.
So she is technically trilingual. So that's pretty awesome. But we don't see women of color, and we had a program here in this district that helped to promote that for several years because I always got recruited, and that's how I finally decided, okay, I'm going to go in and do my admin. But
I will say this is the first district I've been in where I don't see many white males. I don't know if there are any white males.
No.
Because
you see males.
They're all
principals.
they're males of color.
They're males of color. There's more males of color.
Yeah, exactly.
Than there are females.
But then there's a lot of white women of.
A lot of blonde, brown-haired white women, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, no, that's an interesting point, too, where it's okay, we're still not quite getting... But I guess that goes back to, when they're trying to make that equity push versus now, which is a weird thing to have removed from your goals. But, that's just me.
Yeah.
Anyway, no. Okay, so I do want to keep talking, but unfortunately, I do have to go.
Yep, it's 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, 4:30. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. We went from Trump to down back to our district.
Yeah, well, that's the way these conversations go. All right, everybody, thank you for paying attention. We will talk to you later.